Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TSC meeting.
I was looking for a wave uh reaction, but I couldn't find one, so I guess I have to come off mute and say hi.
Good morning.
Hey, hey. Let's wait 2 more minutes for everybody to join. Hey,
Hi, Drake. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
okay, great. Nearly 20 people already in the call. So let's start. And again, welcome to our TSC call. Like any call we do in the Hiero project, this is a public call, which means everybody is invited to join our calls. Everybody is invited to bring topics into our calls, and everybody is invited to join our discussions, not only in general community calls, but here in the TSC call as example two. We have a public calendar where you can find all the different talks of the Hiero project. Let's have a look. So we currently here in the Hiero TSC meeting. Next meeting will be the Hiero marketing community call. And a lot of those meetings are recorded. So first of all, you can click on those meetings, finding the link to join and so on. And if you get to a past leader meeting like the Hiero TSC meeting of last week, you can even find a recording and the agenda of that meeting. Um, since we do all that in public and it's recorded and so on, all that happens under the Code of Conduct of the Linux Foundation and the antitrust policy of the Linux Foundation. So whenever you want to bring something up, join a discussion, have a topic you would like to bring to a meeting, please always do it in a friendly manner, and then everything is fine. And let's move to the agenda of today. So, since we switched with our agendas to a GitHub-based wiki, where we do not have a direct review process with pull requests and pull request reviews and approvals like we had in the past before, we do not have as the first agenda item a kind of approval of the previous minutes. What we now have is a short overview of the last TSC call, and somehow I raised my hand last week when the question was in the room who will do that. So I will give a short overview about what happened last week if you have missed it. So I think the most important topics have been the LFDT maintainer event that happens next week in New York together with the LFDT member summit. Both happen in the same week, and we have several Hyrule-related topics in those events. Some people from the Hyrule community, mostly maintainers, will visit in New York at those events, and we have some sessions where we give an overview on Hyrule and what happened in the last year. We have a lot of sessions that are more generic, where we talk about best practices to create a diverse community. We talk about our Good First Issue initiative and so on. And since we started this year with more asynchronous votes in the TSC than maybe we had in total last year, last meeting we looked again at Git vote, and Jessica gave again a short introduction to it because we already had 2 weeks ago an asynchronous vote on the proposal for the new roadmap project. And last week we started an asynchronous voting on an HIP. We come to that in a second, where we will have a look at the results of that. And then in the any other business section, last week we had two topics. One was about the naming of HCS standards in the HIP repository, and instead of having a specific folder for that and additional folders for things that might come in future, that it would make sense to have something more generic. And Michael Garber and Michael Cantor, sorry, who are both here in the meeting today, wanted to discuss that topic. Maybe they will come up with any news here at the end of the meeting. Let's see. And another point we had discussed was, in general, the topic mentorship and the mentorship program. And that brings us even to one of the points of the agenda today. If I understood it correctly, we have the person from the Linux Foundation here today, later in our meeting, who will give an introduction to the LFX mentorship program and how it can be used for Hyrule. Okay, that's about the last meeting. Are there any questions on those topics? Anything I missed, maybe? Okay, great. Which brings us to our general reminder regarding the community calls. I always do that at the beginning, so we already did this. And the invite to all of you to join our Hiero Discord or the LFDT Discord and our Hiero channels there. And with that, the general questions: if there is something like upcoming events or interesting project updates that you would like to share with the community, like last week where we talked about the maintainer days in New York. So any news you would like to share here? Okay, great. So no news. I assume we will have the next 2 weeks a lot of news when a lot of people of us attended the maintainer summit and members days in New York, and the next TSC meeting will even be done from New York. So I will be in New York, and some other people here in the call too. So I assume it will be some of us sitting together in a room instead of all of us sitting individual together currently at their homes. Okay, which brings us to the concrete topics of today. And I see, hey Nate, you already like yeah, on screen. So thank you very much for being here and for sharing all the knowledge of the LFX mentorship with us. I assume Jessica was the person who invited you. So what I will now do, I will stop sharing my screen and give the stage to yours. I don't know, Jessica, if you want to say some words first, or if Nate, you would directly to start, introduce yourself and talk about the mentorship program.
Thank you, Hendrik, and thank you, Nate, for being here. So just a quick background information about this. Sophie, she's working with Nate, and she's working with me to host a mentorship program. And this mentorship program, it's going to be focused on how to mentor new contributors, how to bring them up to speed, and how to give them the tools that they need to become potential maintainers going forward. So this is the reason why we reach out to the LFX team, specifically to Nate, to help us understand the process on how mentorship works, how can it help us with this idea of bringing up maintainers up to speed, and how in specific it could help Sophie and the team to bring us to where we want to be. So Nate, thank you so much for joining, and I'll give you the floor now.
So just a quick correction. I'm not actually part of the LFX team. I'm going to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Nate Waddington. I'm actually the head of mentorship and documentation over at the CNCF. Now I work with the LFX team, but I do like to make that distinction. So I use their services, whereas the LFX team, they build the platform. So there's a distinction there, and so in terms of what this sort of discussion is, forgive me not having a specific slideshow for you. I might bring a couple of slides in here and there from previous talks I've done. But my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe this becomes a bit more of a discussion than a presentation. I think that Hiero, how do you pronounce your project name? Hiero? Hiero, sorry.
Yeah, like hieroglyphic. Hiero.
Awesome. Okay. You see, I read a lot of things. I don't hear a lot of things. Sometimes I mispronounce things. So I'd be happy to sort of go through how the CNCF runs their program, as well how we use the LFX platform, and obviously the benefits and whatnot of mentorship. So I just want to sort of set that baseline, because I think I just want to sort of correct the maybe this is an awkward way to start all this, but I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. My
No
apologies
problem.
for that. Yes, no, thank you for the correction. And definitely what we want to get your help on is on how mentorship has worked for CNCF.
Okay.
And I mean, a little bit of how we will use the LFX mentorship tool. I've seen it before, and I know that there's some deadlines for suggesting programs and for getting your program reviewed. And so that process
Right.
is
Okay.
probably unknown for the majority of the people here. So a little bit
Okay.
of how that works will be
Well,
great.
okay. So I'll start a little bit at the
Yep.
beginning then. And I don't think that the slides that I was going to use are necessarily perfect. So forgive me, I might jump in back and forth to an article I wrote just the end of last year with the most recent sort of numbers. So the way I call it the CNCF LFX mentorship program, because we have a couple of there's whenever I start a conversation, I always like to get definitions out of the way. So LFX, the LFX platform, and then there's the LFX sort of mentoring program. And I've kind of redubbed the mentoring program the CNCF LFX mentoring program to distinguish it from, let's say, Hyperledger or the kernel or whomever else is using the platform, because each uh, foundation or sub-foundation has the ability to run their own program. And that extends out to deadlines and how you pick programs, how you organize things. It's all very much sort of foundation based. Like the kernels program is very, very different from the CNCF program, for instance. So the way the CNCF, the way we run the program is we run it 3 times a year. Roughly correlating to the northern spring, summer, and fall. And what we do is we reach out. We are a very maintainer focused organization, and so what we do is about 6 weeks. Here, let me actually. You know what? It might be easier here. No, CNCF. So about 6 weeks before the start of a term for the mentees, we put out a call for proposals to our maintainers, and we say, do you have some work that you think a mentee could do? Let's say a junior engineer or maybe a third or fourth year engineering student could do in the course of about 12 weeks with some coaching. And we asked them to, here, I wonder if I can share my screen. Share. I think I want to share this. Okay, can you see my,
Yes.
Yes.
yes, perfect. Okay, so we're going to go to 2026 here, March, May. So you can see here we've got at the beginning of the year, I always set out a calendar of events, right? So we've got I usually try and schedule two semesters out, maybe 3 if I'm feeling ambitious, right? But we've got several sort of sections where we say, okay, here's the proposals, here's the mentee applications. Um, um, Here's when certain things happen. And when I'm asking the maintainers what they want to do, right? Literally, it's they're proposing ideas that then mentees can go through and sort of do applications for, right? Let me bring up. So I'm sorry, I'm a little bit scattered just because things are a little bit different from what maybe I thought they were going to be. So that we are sort of very maintainer focused is a little bit different from other programs like Google Summer of Code, or like I said, the kernel program, partly because, for instance, when we let's actually go back and show a one that has already been done here. So the end of last year here, we had several, so let's just go to a random Karmata here. So we have the description of the program, who the mentors are, the upstream issue, and then the LFX URL here. And so we can see here that there's like this is maybe not the most robust description, but you can see who the mentors are. You can see who the graduated mentee is. And this is the platform that we use. This is the LFX platform that actually allows folks to apply. But what we do is we say, all right, let's have, in our case, we always require sort of 2 mentors per project, right? And we always ask for 1 mentee per project. If you want to have like a project that is in a larger scope, then that's a little bit of a different program than what we run. And if you want to have 2 mentees or 3 or 4 mentees, you're welcome to do that. At that point, I ask mentors to sort of break up the scope of any particular project so that it can be managed as if it were separate mentorships, right? So you can still be working to the same goal, but it's still going to be um, it's still going to be uh, 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 um, individual. Now that is contrasted to, let's say, the kernels program where Shua Khan runs it more like a session or a yeah, I think that's what they call them in universities where you've got like a um, instead of like a class in grad school, you've got like uh, um, a uh, a group of people come in, you have guest lecturers and such like that. That's more like what Shua does, where she'll have 30 mentees or 20 mentees. Uh, and she will sort of say, okay, here's some issues, here's how you work on things, here's how you uh, go about doing that. So there are differences between uh, the programs, and that's sort of a good thing because that shows the flexibility of the platform itself, right? So I'm just going to bring this over here so that I can take a look at it and at least sort of organize my thoughts a little bit. Oops, now I'm showing you something else. Um, so actually, you know what? I will bring up this. So I've linked this in here, and there's some really interesting numbers. So part of the reason why we do this is first, like, I mean, yes, we get some work done by the mentees, but that's almost like a bonus, right? Like getting a feature built or a piece of work completed is almost a stretch goal in some cases. What the real value of the program is being able to build continuing contributors, right? Um, uh, like right now we've got so here like contributions. This is just showing that the program is growing, right? We've got our top contributing mentees. Like we have people since their mentorship, and in the case of Mariam Fahmy here, 7,000, almost 8,000 contributions, and I think she was a mentee about a year and a half ago. So these are people who are continuing to contribute. And uh, this chart I'm quite pleased with because depending on how you count, we have between 40 and 60% of mentees continuing to contribute in the year following their program. And the difference in the counting here is okay, like if it's in a week or two or a month past the end of the term, maybe it's just folks finishing up. I also have people who are doing more than one contribution, right? And then I've got people contributing a month and a bit past to the year following. And so it's really about bringing people into your community and growing your community and ensuring that you're teaching these mentees how to work in open source, right? How to work on your project. And then this one here.
Nate, sorry to
Yep.
interrupt you. There's a question in the chat by
Oh,
Richard. Do mentees typically join a company and contribute after being hired, or are they contributing as individuals?
There we go. So that actually, thank you for bringing me back around. I'll get to that. Just let me finish this one stat here, and now
For
back to
sure.
that.
Thank you.
And so in the 5 years that we've been running the LFX program, since 2020, we've had 25 mentees go on to become CNCF project maintainers. So that I think is really the like when I go to my governing board and ask for more budget, it's this number that I bring up. It's the number of maintainers that are generated from the program as well as the number of continuing contributors. Because again, it's all about for us growing that community and yeah. So when we look at the actual program and who is running it, because we're asking because we're asking the maintainers and community members to be the mentors, and because this is all sort of being done in open source, generally speaking, and we're actually building another program I can talk about a little bit later if you'd like, the mentees are coming from a general call for proposals, or rather call for applications. So they are, because our program is full-time, which I usually think of as like 30 to 35 hours a week, and because we pay a stipend, so all of our mentees in this program get paid, usually between, I think it's something like 3,000 and 6,600 US dollars, depending on where people are in the world. If you're in, let's say, Saskatchewan, probably getting closer to 3,300. If you're in New York, probably you're closer to the 6,600. We feel that folks generally don't have time to also have a job. And so the mentees aren't coming from, like I said, generally speaking, companies. Now, there are a few companies who support projects who are really interested in the program. Layer 5 comes to mind, a company that supports the Meshery project, right? They've got several maintainers on the Meshery program. And what Layer 5 will sometimes do is to use our mentorship program a little bit like an internship program, where they will say, okay, we want the project, because again, it still always needs to be sort of project first and maintainer first, right? If there is a piece of work that the project wants done that a company would like to have done, what sometimes Meshery will do, Layer 5 will do, is say, okay, let's have the maintainers that we have on staff put out a proposal, have mentees apply, right? And then what they do is they say, okay, well, they'll work with us, this full-time program, the CNCF will pay the stipend, and the company will get the benefit of seeing whether or not they are a good fit with this mentee. They can see how well they work and all that sort of stuff. And very often Layer 5 will then hire that mentee afterwards. The same thing sort of happened with, in this article that I shared there, the mentorship flywheel. That's basically what happened with Mariam Fahmy as well, with the Nirmata program, where Nirmata was supporting Kyverno, and had several maintainers on staff, and the I recommend reading it. It's once you get past the charts, it's actually Miriam's story of going through the mentorship program and working with Kyverno and her mentor and whatnot. And so, yeah, we do tend to keep it sort of separate. Like if somebody's got a full-time job, they're not ineligible. I tend to say that they are unavailable. So does that answer your question, sir, Richard? Oops. So
Sorry. Yes, I
yep,
think he,
yep.
he put a little thumbs up.
Okay, good stuff. I didn't see that.
And just in the interest of time, I want to ask if there's any more questions so far, just so that we can get through everybody's questions. Is there any questions right
Yeah.
now for Nate? All right, so no questions so far. So, and what would it look like for example, for the Python SDK? What would it be what would you recommend that we do as a next step for getting our mentorship started and promoted more than anything? I think that's also
Yeah.
the other important thing, not
Oh,
only
promotion is
started,
important
but
too. Yeah, absolutely.
but
So the way so if you go to, so if again, I would choose the type of mentorship program that you want, either like mentoring individuals on specific projects, right? Or do you want to do more of like seminar is the term I was looking for earlier, a seminar style where you have a lot of mentees with a couple of maintainers, and you're talking about, okay, what is like in a seminar style, I would say, okay, have a couple of maintainers or mentors weekly for 10 weeks, talk about issues, and encourage the mentees to sort of work together and do that. If you're looking to do something more like the CNCF program, I would build out the structure and say, okay, ask your projects what they want to have worked on, whether or not they have capacity to do something for 12 weeks or 10 weeks or 14 weeks. Like all of these things are flexible in the LFX platform, right? And
Yes.
so decide when you want to run it. Reach out to your maintainers and say, okay, what do you have that you'd like to work on? Then I usually give myself a couple of days from that proposal phase to the application phase to get things loaded up into the LFX platform. And that's where you're going to start driving people, right? Like you saw that Karmada project that I saw. I encourage each project to use their own social media to sort of reach out to their own communities and say, hey, this is something that is happening in our community. Are you interested? You should apply here and drive potential candidates to the LFX platform to do the application. Once the application phase is over, and I usually give it about a week and a half, 2 weeks, then I give the maintainers about 2 weeks to consider the applicants, right? I ask them to go through, I ask them to do interviews, I ask them as much as they can to actually do like a video call. Right now, mentorship in the age of AI is a little bit tricky because if you don't actually speak to somebody, you may not be interviewing a person. You may be asking ChatGPT what their skill set is, and that's not necessarily all that helpful. So that is a bit of a pitfall right now. And I do give so much time for evaluation because I don't know if this is a function of the CNCF or that, but the LFX, the Linux Foundation is so large that we can get hundreds of applicants for a project, and that can take a lot of time to go through. You can filter out on folks who have completed all the tasks, right? And the LFX platform, you can say, okay, you need to do this, you need to provide this, do like you can ask it to upload files, right? So you can do cover letter, resume. Let's say you're doing a technical writing project. You can say, hey, I'd like a writing sample, something along those lines. And you can sort of filter folks for completion of the application. The other thing that I encourage folks to do is set up a in the process, I'll ask projects to say set up an application task on their GitHub org or in their specific repo where you say, hey, in order to show that you've got the ability to do this work, fork this repo, clone it, do these 6 things in it, and then open a PR against this other repo and show us how you would go through the work to again show that people have the ability to do this type of work. You can take a look at something like Wasm Edge and how they run their mentorship program. They do a really good job of doing that type of thing. And then once folks are accepted into the program, again, they get accepted. There's a little bit of a gotcha with the LFX platform where I tend to create the project because the LFX platform doesn't have the concept of like an admin and like a user at the project and the sub foundation level. And so I create all of the projects, which unfortunately means that I have to make the selection manually. And so what I do is I use Google Forms to ask the maintainers, and the mentors to, hey, here's my selection. Then I go back to the LFX platform and say, okay, I'll make all these selections and make sure that the right person is available and all that sort of stuff. And if you want to get into that level of detail with the LFX platform, I can go through like a tour of the platform and how I go through setting up a program. I figured that would be a little bit too much detail for this. And then again, I had mentioned stipends, right? So once they're selected, I say, okay, immediately, I coach my mentors to have like a first week sort of plan. Here's how you get your mentee set up with the environment, have some good first issues ready for them. And then after about 6 weeks, we hit our midterm, and that's when we release the first stipend payment, so the first half. And we do require that the mentees get a positive evaluation from the mentors, right? And so again, I use Google Forms to do that, to say, okay, the mentee is doing well or could improve. And then only if they fail would they ever not receive that stipend. And then again, we do the same thing at the end of the term. And the other thing I really encourage mentees to do as they're going through this is to do up, and this is going to sort of speak to the marketing and sort of the visibility of the program. I do ask that mentees do blog posts or development logs that then they can share at the end of the term to show the work that they do. And I ask our projects as much as possible to post those on their own blogs. And then I do a collection of all that at the end of the term. And then I sort of do a shout out. Here's all of the successful projects and mentors and mentees from the last sort of period there. Now, at the LF level, mentees can only participate once in the program, again, because I think partly because we have such a large influx of applicants that like it's important to be fair. If you only are able to participate once, then other people have opportunities to continue to participate. Also on the CNCF side specifically, because we are paying people these stipends, that we do want to make sure that we have the opportunity to pass that around a bit. Keith, you have a question?
In your program, I know it's probably specific to each project. In your program, how do they communicate, the mentor and the mentees? Like, is it just ad hoc, like email, Discord?
Yeah. So I set up 2 mailing lists at the beginning of each term. I set up a mentor mail list and a mentee email list, and mostly that is for announcement type stuff. Each of our projects communicates a little bit differently. Kubernetes has its own Slack. Backstage has its own Discord. A lot of folks will use the CNCF Slack. And so I asked, again, because part of the goal is to grow the community, I ask for mentors and mentees to communicate as much as possible in the community channels that they've already got set up to try and integrate people. Richard's question here, how do people know about the program? So again, I ask mentors and maintainers, so many M words, to do their own social posting, but we also do shout outs on the CNCF blog as well as across our socials, so LinkedIn, Blue Sky, the other ones, so that we are bringing people up. The other thing is once you get critical mass, people will be watching your program. People watch our program like a hawk, and so when I put up the new schedule in GitHub, people start talking about it. And so there's, once you get that critical mass, people will be interested and will be following along. So yeah, other questions?
Thank you so much, Nate. And I will follow up with you and Sophie. I know Sophie, I don't see her here, but I know that she was very interested in continue the conversation. So I'll follow up with you and her outside of the meeting. But thank you so much for joining us and for helping us understand this topic better. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it. Thank you.
you're very, very welcome. The one last thing I would suggest as well is there are other programs instead of, if you don't want to set up your own, there are other programs that you can join. And the two that I always point to are Google Summer of Code and Outreachy. Google Summer of Code is a great program. It's a little bit different from our program. The onus is more on the candidates to write up the proposals, right? And the Outreachy program is geared towards inclusion and trying to bring folks who have historically been underrepresented in technology into these types of spaces. Both are great programs. Google pays mentees. And Outreachy costs the CNCF a little bit of money to participate in, but again, that's a good program. And CNCF has participated in all three all at once at sometimes. So it is an opportunity to potentially get into mentorship without all of the overhead of setting up your own program if that's something that is interesting as well. I'd be happy to share some of my experience with Google Summer Code as well.
Cool. Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
I assume we will have some follow-ups on those topics because I think it will makes really sense for us. I don't know, but I think that is something then we can discuss with Jessica and so on, if that is more like LFDT on that layer or if it makes sense to be more Hiero specific. But thanks first of all for the introduction and showing all the possibilities we have here, which is great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. I think I'm likely going to drop now because the rest of your meeting is yours. But I'll
you,
keep in
Nate.
touch with Jessica and we'll all talk soon, eh?
Absolutely. Thank you, Nate.
Have a good morning. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, great. So let's go back to the agenda. So the next topic we have are HIPs. Let me open the HIPs overview. And we have one HIP. Oh, it's already moved. I think we are to approved here. So last week we started the asynchronous voting on HIP 1313. I just want to omit to show it again here. So by using Git vote, it was really easy able to do the voting in a GitHub issue. As you can see, 7 people did thumbs up and all of them voted in favor of that HIP, which means since 4 days ago, we already know that HIP is approved by the TSC, which is great. And as just seen, somebody, I don't know if it was Joseph or Michael or whoever, already moved that one to approved. And I'm seeing here we have some who are now have the state review. Michael, can you share some information on them, some timeline for those? Do you know when they will come to the TSC?
I don't have a specific answer for that, but I do know that we've thought about them as priority and that within the coming weeks, we would like to present them and have them voted on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, some HIPs that will come to us in near future. That is great. Yeah, and that HIP got approved, which means we are. Oh, I think Jessica, you added that point.
I don't remember.
Me neither. That is not coming
I
from
think
me.
I think I believe the in last TSC meeting we talked about having something like that. I do remember that. So I might have put it, but yeah, I mean we can remove it. I mean, if no
Okay.
problem.
Or anybody wants to say something about that for sure. I mean, it's an important topic, but I do not see that we have any community concerns at the moment or any escalations. If I'm wrong, happy to hear about it. Okay, great. So let's move to the any other business section. I have one point which is about good first issues and hackathons where I have some news um, coming from the last TSC call. Michael and Michael, are there any news on the HCS naming discussion for how it's stored in HIPs? I see Alexander has something he would like to share. Yeah.
Just a new project proposal overview, if we have
Oh
time.
yeah, you pinged me about that. Right, and I told you let's put it to the end, and if we have time, you can
Yep.
present it. Is there anything else?
Yeah. I just wanted to talk to the point that you just mentioned, Hendrik. And really I just wanted to propose that we evaluate HRCs as an alternative framework for application specific standards. Um, and for us to put it to a vote maybe next week and
Okay.
come to a vote on that. I don't think we came to a resolution in our conversation uh, with uh, Cantor and I. And my main suggestion here is just that we did do a vote. What was the vote number? 261 to give HCS standards a new home, and I think that's a totally good thing. But I don't think we considered how, like with, I don't think we considered following Ethereum's or benefiting by following Ethereum's example when they created HRCs, which would be a bigger umbrella and encompass more types of standards. And I'm suggesting that we create that type of thing and migrate HCS standards to that under that purview.
Understood, but if I understood it correctly, that needs some more discussion and you will come up with an update next week then. Correct?
Right, right, right. Yeah, I'm suggesting we open it up for discussion and
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I'm not totally opposed to an idea that uses the pointers. I think that's what we kind of agreed to when we initially brought the Hiero consensus standards into Hiero. I think from my side, with HRCs, I think what it does is it's an interesting perspective because it would provide a way to relatively link other specification types. I think at this time, right now, I think we mostly have the Hiero consensus standards, right? Or specifications. We don't have any additional ones. So I don't know that it makes sense yet to jump the gun there. I'm a big believer of, hey, when the problem exists, then maybe we should address and build something out for that and then think about it. For these specifications as well, I think it's really important to me and the work that we're doing at Hashgraph Online that the incentives are aligned. So having a single home for specifications by themselves elevates the work that folks are doing, and I think it deserves its own place. And that was a big part of our discussion and how we voted and got to where we were today. I think moving away from that would misalign the incentives that we agreed on initially, especially for the folks who are contributing from Hashgraph Online and outside of Hashgraph Online. And it would unfortunately have to make us rethink things quite a bit. So I'm of the opinion that I wouldn't be in favor of blanket moving all the specifications over to a new home that basically umbrellas it under something else. I think that it deserves to be in its own arena. I think this is mutually beneficial because it allows for Hashgraph Online to participate. It allows for folks who participate outside the ecosystem as well, who are not paid employees within the Hiero ecosystem, who have their own reasons for contributing to open source. I think in a moment where we're seeing frameworks like Tailwind losing funding and having to lay off 75% of their engineers, I think we have to be really careful with how we do things like this. And it's important that there is a home and visibility for work that's being open sourced outside of paid organizations. So that's my opinion. I do think, and I'm quite open to setting something up that creates a pointer system, and that's what we agreed with the original proposal, and that's an area that would be very amendable in.
Yeah,
So
and
you,
I agree. We did come up with that to have its own home, but I don't think in that vote we considered this HRC um, way of doing it, and the argument of like let's wait and see. It seems like we have the benefit of looking at the way Ethereum did it, and right now it's the cheapest and least painful time to do something like this. If we waited for new standards to come up and we had to come up with new repos and new pointers, then it starts to complicate things. And if we could create the structure now, I feel like it would be the best time to do that. But curious to see what Giuseppe.
yeah, Giuseppe, do you want to say something on that topic?
Yeah, honestly, yes, I think
Perfect.
it would be a great idea if we can organize something like an HRC stream for the heap, because we already have essentially the standard application track that includes all the standards that are not changing the consensus rules. So, because now it's clear that those type of heaps are growing, and because we have the good HCS standards that are also there, probably we are going to have the application standards regardless of the HCS standards. So it will be very cool if those can be merged, and also having to separate repos can allow essentially the community to have different workflows, different approval processes. So in perspective for future manageability of the repos and the standards and evolution of the community, I think would be very cool to have two repos and to follow what Ethereum did in these years essentially. And I don't know if is there because I've seen Michael and the two Michaels mentioning discussions about this. So sorry if I didn't read all the details about the discussion. But is there this GitHub issue, a specific place where I can give some feedback, or maybe also other community members can give feedback on this HRC idea?
Not at the moment. And I think if I understood it correctly, you even thinking now bigger than the discussion of Michael Kenter and Michael Garber was, because that was never about like two repositories. If I understood it correctly, it was more like how can we put the HCS standards in the HIP repository in a meaningful way, where the discussion was like, oh, should there an HCS folder, let's call it like that, or should we open a new kind of category where HCS lives and possible other things in the future? And I think what is definitely important, and that is what Michael Garber said, right? We did a voting on the name to include it and so on. What we missed, and this is where we are now, we have not talked about the technical integration, right? And I think that is a point that we have now here. And I think it's important with whatever we do and whatever outcome we have is that we respect the vote we already did on that. Right, I am totally in favor of having something that goes into that direction of creating a new, more general subgroup. But I think it's important to be aware of where we already agreed on to not end in endless discussions. And I'm seeing Milan is activating the camera, so I assume you want to add something here, maybe?
Well, no, I had an emergency with my dog, so I missed the part between the mentorship and discussion about ACS. So I'm trying to really catch up on the last few. Apologies. Yeah, that's something happens if you live on a farm. You kind of get that these things.
And Henrik, just to give you a last bit of information, so what Ethereum did is also to have a single website for HIP. So as a developer, as a user, from my point of view, I see a single Ethereum HIP website, and then technically behind under the hood there are two repos. So it's not strictly mandatory to have two repos, but we can still have these unite, let's say, front facing versus the community, and still using separated repos for yeah, maybe better managing those heaps, but just as a as an idea. Yep.
Good. So I think that's a topic we still need to continue to discuss, Michael Cantor. I hope that is okay for you. Oh, sorry, somebody wanted
Rick, is there any chance that because again, apologies, I missed the part. Is there any chance that well, I can watch it back, but at least to have if there's difference from any vote that we did, or that we avoid any assumptions that this is written down or some kind of proposal or something that we can reread it.
I mean, it's not against any vote we did, right? So let's go. What we're talking about here is, let's go to the TSC report, and that's not what I said. So if it sounded like we're now acting against any vote, that's not the impression I wanted to give. So let's go to project proposals, and it's a closed one, and oh no, is it still open because it's not completely done? Is it this one? No. March. Let me see closed ones.
261. Second one down.
Oh, thank you. Perfect. Thank you. So it's this proposal where we voted on and that we discussed for several meetings, which is like moving the Hiero consensus specifications into Hiero as where it's written down as a part of the HIPs somewhere. Here we have this relationship to HIPs, and it says that there will be a dedicated HIP file for each of the HCS specifications. And the question we're currently discussing is not this, it's more like within the Hiero consensus, within the Hiero improvement specifications, where do those HCS specifications live? And Michael Garber came up with an idea to make a more generic approach to extend, I would say, like extend what we currently have with in the HIPs with something generic where HCS can live in. And if I understand Michael Cantor correctly, he would prefer to have an exclusive HCS area folder, however you want to call it, within the Hiero improvement proposals repository. That is currently the state. So we agreed on all of that, and now it's more about how to do the structure and how to do that. And I don't know if that is something where the TSC need to do a vote, but what I would totally like is to have consensus on that and move it in a meaningful future, and not in a worst case now do something that we repeat 20 times. I heard you, Michael, that what should come, totally fine, but you never know what comes, right? So, and I don't want to end with 20 subfolders in the hip repo that all have specific meanings. So the question here is if we can define something more generic. And if I'm correct, we're not in a big hurry on that topic since we voted on this, we all agreed on this. What is now open is something I would like to discuss in the next week to come up to the TSC with a solution that makes everybody happy. Would that work? Is that a good idea, Michael Garber, Michael Kenter? Or do you think in a different way?
No, I think that's great. And just
Okay.
for clarity, we're fine with using the hip process. We can put it really what we agreed on in this PR was that we'd have the Hiero consensus specifications repository, which is a huge mutual benefit for the entire ecosystem. And then in the HIPS folder, we would have like a registry for all those specifications, which enables folks to see the current specifications. It ties it back into the HIP process and allows folks to also contribute HCS specifications through HIPS as well, that are external to that repository if needed for some other reason. And they're hashed by commit. I think where we're trying to land on, and I think we're fine if those pointers or hips themselves, so that they'd be very, very light. And I think we were just trying to figure out, should it be its own folder or should it be something else entirely, since this is quite novel. I think HRCs, which is being proposed now, was not something that we agreed on, which would be an external repository that serves as like a wrapper umbrella, where with HRCs, Hiero consensus specifications would be migrated into that. It's because it's an umbrella and it kind of further hides the work that's been done under a different repository. I think this aligns the incentives and part of our, looking at how to make this successful.
I think it's a little bit unfair to use words like hides and we did not agree, because I would at least indicate here that we didn't even consider it. And um and it's not an umbrella to hide, but more of a umbrella to capture as many categories as possible without confusing everyone.
Okay. Thanks for those statements. As said, I think we need more discussions here, and Michael Kenter, Michael Garber, happy to help you. I don't know if we need to do the full discussion on the TSC like in the next weeks. From my point of view, best would be that a crew find a good solution and brings that to the TSC. As said, I'm more than happy to help here. I assume others too. I heard Giuseppe has some input here. Milan had some questions, so maybe some people can come together, discuss that, and find a good solution. And with that, we're already out of time. So sorry, Alexander, that we were not able to talk about your project proposal. We will put it on the agenda for next week so that for sure next week we will talk about it. I hope that's fine for you.
Yep, no worries.
Perfect. Thank you. And For everybody else, again, thanks for being here, for taking care of our meeting, taking care in our meetings, and take care about the Hiero project. Next meeting is the marketing meeting that started 5 minutes ago. So if you are interested in outreach of Hiero, in marketing, in how we try to communicate messages about Hiero and get more people to contribute and so on, I think that's a meeting you should attend. And for everybody else, happy to see some of you. I, for example, seen just Renata from DSR here. Finally, next week in person in New York, and all the others see you in any of the Hiero meetings. Thank you all and goodbye.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Please do. Bye.
Bye.